Before the world lost him, Elvis Presley whispered a secret that would shatter everything we thought we knew about the king. It happened late one night in Graceland's dimly lit living room, his voice barely audible over the ticking clock. The golden boy with the hypnotic hips who had sold millions of records and electrified stadiums confessed that behind the velvet voice and the glittering jumpsuits lay a darkness he could never escape. No fan saw the tremor in his hand as he spoke. No photographer caught the hollow look in his eyes. From the moment a shy country boy stepped on stage in 1954, Elvis rode a tidal wave of adoration and adrenaline. Yet behind every triumphant guitar riff lurked the gnawing emptiness of isolation. His meteoric rise wasn't just fueled by talent, it was powered by a relentless hunger for approval, a hunger that would eventually drive him into the arms of prescription pills and amphetamines. In the solitude of his sprawling mansion, surrounded by family and trophies, he felt more alone than ever. Tonight, we peel back the sequins and spotlights to expose the cracks in the facade. You'll hear about the night he collapsed backstage in Las Vegas, the private letters he wrote begging for relief, and the hidden struggle that turned his biggest triumphs into tragic milestones. This isn't another straightforward biography. It's a journey into the heart of an icon's final confession, a truth so explosive that it redefines everything we believed about Elvis Presley's legend. Prepare to confront the untold story of fame's cruel bargain, the king who conquered the world but couldn't conquer his own demons. Elvis Aaron Presley was born in Tupelo, Mississippi in 1935, but it was in Memphis where he truly found his voice. By the mid-1950s, the South was simmering with change. Rhythm and blues spilled from jukeboxes in Beale Street bars and country ballads drifted from rural porches. Into this vibrant crossroads of musical traditions stepped a lanky teenager with a voice like honey and hips that seemed to have a life of their own. Signed to Sun Records in 1954, Elvis ignited a revolution, blending gospel fervor, raw blues emotion, and hillbilly twang into something entirely new: rockabilly. His breakthrough single, That's All Right, flipped the music industry on its head, drawing teenagers and parents alike into an electrified dance craze. By 1956, he was a national phenomenon. His RCA debut, Heartbreak Hotel, shot to #1, and America watched in awe as he appeared on televised variety shows, commanding every frame with cheekbones sharper than his tailored suits. Teen magazines plastered his face on their covers. Screams of delirious fans became the soundtrack to stadium concerts. Within 2 years, he had scored his first #1 album, starred his first Hollywood movie, and earned the nickname the King of Rock and Roll. A whirlwind of gold records, movie contracts, and sold-out tours established him as the most significant entertainer of his generation. But the mid-1960s brought a shift. The British invasion, led by the Beatles, ushered in a new sound, and Elvis found himself navigating an industry he once dominated. His film career, though lucrative, became formulaic musical comedies that prioritized box office appeal over artistic risk. Behind the scenes, Colonel Tom Parker, his enigmatic manager, negotiated every move with an iron fist, steering Elvis toward predictable roles and extensive touring in Las Vegas showroom circuits. The King's creative fire dimmed under the weight of commercial demands, yet the audience's appetite for his larger-than-life persona only grew. In the summer of 1968, after nearly a decade of cinematic mediocrity, Elvis staged a triumphant comeback special for NBC television. Draped in black leather and bathed in stark studio lights, he unleashed raw energy and reminded the world of his transformative power. The '68 comeback special reignited his career, leading to sold-out concerts and a multi-million-dollar deal with Las Vegas's International Hotel. By 1970, Elvis, that's the way it is, showcased a skilled performer at the top of his game, a king restored. Yet behind the sequin jumpsuits and thunderous applause, Elvis grappled with growing pressures. The explorer of sonic frontiers now found himself confined to grueling tour schedules, movies that paid the bills but bored his soul, and the ever-watchful gaze of a fan base that expected perfection. He relied on prescription medications to maintain energy on stage, ease chronic pain, and sleep through the endless nights of royalty he never asked for. Priscilla, the woman he married in 1967, saw the gradual change in the man. She loved the sparkle in his eyes dimming, laughter replaced by forced smiles. Famously private about his inner life, Elvis kept his struggles far from the public eye. His sprawling Graceland estate became both refuge and cage, its manicured lawns unable to hide the growing unrest within its walls. Surrounded by extravagant gifts, gold records, custom Cadillacs, a racquetball core that felt more isolated than ever. The boy who once sang gospel in church choirs now paced hallways at midnight, searching for relief from an ache he could neither name nor escape. As the 1970s progressed, Elvis's health began to falter. Concert attendance remained strong, but critics noted a decline in his vocal agility and physical vitality. Fans whispered about his gaunt face, the glazed look in his eyes, and rumors of chemical dependencies. Yet no one could have predicted the depth of his despair or the tragic spiral that would redefine his legacy. Today, when we speak of Elvis Presley, we recall the seismic impact he had on music, culture, and fashion. We celebrate the teenager who shattered racial barriers in the South, the movie star who became a global icon, and the performer whose voice continues to inspire generations. But the true story of Elvis is incomplete without acknowledging the hidden fractures beneath the surface. The shimmering exterior masked a man tormented by expectations, battling addiction, and yearning for genuine connection in a world that demanded he always remain larger than life. In exploring his achievements and admirations, we are compelled to ask, what price did he pay for this unrivaled fame? And what unseen truths lie behind the legend of the king? Here, we begin to uncover the subtle tensions that would lead to his greatest triumphs and, ultimately, to his most devastating downfall. Elvis's ascent began with a quiet confidence that pulsed through every note he sang. On small stages in Memphis clubs, his voice carried both the plaintive ache of the Delta blues and the soaring fervor of gospel choirs, captivating audiences unaccustomed to such raw fusion. Promoters watched ticket sales explode overnight, and soon the boy from Tupelo was packing halls nationwide. His first national tour saw teenage girls fainting en masse, police barricading crowds, and headlines proclaiming that America was witnessing something truly groundbreaking. Concert after concert, Elvis rewrote the rules of performance. Swiveling pelvis, playful grins, and a stage presence that dared you to look away. Yet even in these heady days, subtle cracks began to form. On one 1957 tour, military buzz over his backlash-worthy moves forced television producers to film him only from the waist up. Critics accused him of corrupting youth, while at home, his beloved mother Gladys slipped deeper into ill health. The grief of losing her in 1958 hit him like a freight train. He postponed recording sessions, retreated into isolation at Graceland, and refused to speak publicly for weeks. When he finally returned to the spotlight, the weight of loss clung to his every lyric, lending a haunting gravitas to his ballads but dimming the playful spark that had first enchanted fans. Soon after, Elvis answered his draft notice and served 2 years in the United States Army, a decision that seemed at odds with his wild persona. In Germany, he met Priscilla, a 14-year-old Air Force officer's daughter, whose calm presence steadied him. Their courtship, conducted through formal visits under military supervision, offered a glimpse of stability amid chaos. Yet even this chapter carried tension. The separation of service allowed Elvis a rare break from fame's glare, but also intensified his yearning for the stage. Returning in 1960, he faced a transformed industry. The Beatles had landed on American shores, their mop-top haircuts and clever lyrics capturing the nation's imagination. Presley's arrival from Europe was announced with fanfare, but the seismic shift in popular music left him scrambling to find relevance. His film career provided a lucrative but ultimately hollow refuge. Lighthearted musicals like Blue Hawaii and Viva Las Vegas cranked out hit songs but stifled his artistic growth. Each paycheck filled his pockets, but his soul longed for creative challenges. Behind the veneer of scripted romances and sun-soaked backdrops, a different story unfolded. On set, tensions simmered between Elvis and Colonel Parker, whose iron grip on contract prevented the king from branching into more serious film roles or producing original material. Studio diets of bubblegum pop tracks left him resentful and rebellious. In letters to friends, he described his disdain for formulaic scripts and confessed that he missed the exhilaration of live performance. In private, he began experimenting with heavier medication to numb the growing frustration. The '68 comeback special was born from this crucible of restlessness. With no studio audience to judge him, Elvis took risks. Impromptu jams with former bandmates, stripped-down blues numbers, a leather-clad rock set that harkened back to his roots. The broadcast was a sensation, shattering ratings records and reminding the world why he had become a legend in the first place. Critics lauded the emotional intensity of his renditions, particularly his version of If I Can Dream, a poignant anthem reflecting the civil rights turmoil gripping the nation. For a moment, Elvis stood at the pinnacle once more, unshackled and authentic. Yet success came at a cost. The relentless touring schedule that followed left him physically and mentally exhausted. Night after night, he filled arenas in Las Vegas and across the country, moving from city to city in a blur of private jets, limousines, and pill bottles. Reports emerge of him taking up to 20 different medications, daily stimulants, to keep him performing, depressants to help him sleep. His longtime friends noticed strange mood swings, bouts of manic energy followed by deep depressions. Priscilla, now his wife, watched helplessly as the man who had once been so full of life grew increasingly withdrawn. In the early 1970s, the rumors crystallized into visible decline. On stage, his once fluid dance moves became sluggish. Off stage, weight swings and bloated cheeks hinted an unhealthy dependency on drugs. One night in 1973, he collapsed during a performance in Rapid City, South Dakota. The audience gasped as security rushed the stage. Elvis was rushed to hospital, diagnosed with severe dehydration and drug-induced exhaustion. Newspapers splashed the story across front pages, and tabloids speculated about the king's mortality. Yet despite dire warnings from doctors, he continued to tour, as if driven by a force he could neither resist nor understand. The pressures of maintaining his image intensified the spiral. Graceland, once a sanctuary, became a gilded cage. His auntie, nicknamed the Memphis Mafia, ensured constant company but also enabled his worst habits, supplying drugs and turning a blind eye to his decline. Portraits of a smiling, healthy Elvis hung on the walls, but the true master of ceremonies prowled the halls at odd hours, struggling with insomnia and paranoia. He wrote frantic notes to Priscilla, begging her to stay, confessing fears that someone was plotting against him. Behind the laughter and the jokes lay a deep-seated loneliness that no medication could cure. By 1976, the king's reign was teetering. Concert reviews commented on his lackluster performances and his tendency to mumble lyrics. Fans who had once adored him began to drift away, seeking fresher talent. Record sales dipped, and the Colonel's insistence on exorbitant ticket prices only fueled the backlash. Elvis remained defiant, insisting he was still at the top of his game, but inside he knew the truth. The medications that had once energized him now weighed him down, blurring the line between performance and self-destruction. In June 1977, Elvis Presley's body was found unresponsive in his Graceland bathroom. At just 42 years old, the king had fallen. The official cause was heart failure, hastened by a cocktail of prescription drugs. The world mourned, candlelight vigils, tearful eulogies, and a flood of tributes from fellow musicians. Yet alongside the grief came a haunting question. How had the man who seemed to have everything ended up so alone? His life, once a storybook ascent from humble beginnings to global stardom, became a cautionary tale of how fame's brightest lights can cast the darkest shadows. Elvis's rise and fall are inseparable two sides of a coin that glittered so brightly it blinded millions. His story teaches us that unparalleled success often carries hidden costs: the erosion of privacy, the burden of expectations, and the temptations of escape. The king may have left the building, but the echoes of his rise and his tragic end still reverberate through pop culture, a reminder that even legends are human. And no one who witnessed Elvis Presley's private meltdown could ever forget the dissonance between the man on stage and the man behind closed doors. In the spring of 1975, as he prepared for a string of sold-out dates at the Las Vegas Hilton, insider Gloria Staverston, editor of 16 magazine, recalled him arriving 10 minutes late, eyes glassy, voice strained. He looked like a stranger, she later confided, as if someone had dipped him in glitter but left his soul behind. Behind the curtain, Elvis's regimen was horrific. He began each day with a concoction of amphetamines to jolt him awake, followed by heavy sedatives to steady his nerves. By mid-afternoon, he was popping painkillers for chronic back issues, and by evening, a cocktail of barbiturates to calm the adrenaline before stepping into the floodlights. Priscilla later revealed that his pill load often reached more than 20 a day, and that she would find crushed tablets in ashtrays long after guests had left Graceland's living room parties. It was during one such evening gathering in early 1976 that the darkest truth surfaced. Friend and bodyguard Sonny West discovered a hidden tray of methamphetamine tablets beneath the couch cushion, stash large enough to supply a small army. Confronting Elvis, Sonny watched the king's face twist from defiance to despair. He said to me, "Sonny, without these, I'm nobody," Sonny recounted. He looked at me like I was the one betraying him. That moment, unseen by the adoring public, marked the point of no return. The man who had once electrified the world with a single note was now shackled by chemicals he blamed for his own legacy. Rumors of his dependency spread through Hollywood like wildfire. Screenwriter Larry Geller, hired as Elvis's spiritual advisor, claimed Elvis confided in him that the pills felt like liquid courage, necessary to confront a crowd of thousands. In letters found after his death, Elvis wrote, "I'm scared I'll wake up one morning and find I can't sing anymore. These pills keep me strong, but at what cost?" These unguarded admissions contradicted the Colonel's public statements, which always insisted Elvis is in fine health. The media frenzy that followed Sonny West's revelations was merciless. Tabloids splashed photos of sunken eyes and bloated cheeks across their spreads, juxtaposed with still-frame smiles from concert films. People magazine ran an exposé titled "The Tragic King," while Rolling Stone headlined "How Fame Killed Elvis." Fans felt betrayed. The legend they worshipped seemed to be crumbling before their eyes. Yet the emotional peak of the scandal came when Priscilla, in a rare interview, admitted she had chosen to stay out of love, not duty, fearing that her departure would push Elvis deeper into despair. Amid the uproar, a final incident sealed Elvis's tragic truth. On June 26, 1977, the night before his death, he was scheduled for a recording session but never arrived. Those close to him later learned he had spent hours wrestling with insomnia, chain-smoking until his throat burned, then retreating to Graceland's bathroom. At 3:30 a.m., his bodyguard discovered him slumped by the sink, lifeless. The autopsy would list hypertensive cardiovascular disease, exacerbated by a toxic mix of prescription drugs. But for those who knew all the hidden details, the true culprit was fame itself, a force that had both built him up and torn him apart. In the aftermath, public reaction was a kaleidoscope of grief, guilt, and reflection. Candlelight vigils flickered outside Graceland gates, and fans etched messages of love on the mansion's white pillars. Musicians paid tribute by covering his songs, and film documentaries dissected every frame of his final performances. Critics revisited his catalog with newfound reverence, acknowledging that the tortured edge in his late-period vocals was no mere affectation, but the strain of a man in freefall. Elvis's final confession revealed posthumously in a tape found among his private recordings continues to haunt. In it, he admits, "I thought I could handle it all. But this life, it's a beast that eats you from the inside." That raw vulnerability shattered any remaining illusions. The king, it seemed, had ruled his kingdom until the day he surrendered to its darkest appetite. Elvis Presley's legacy is a tapestry woven from unmatched talent, bold innovation, and profound contradictions. On one hand, he stands as a transformative figure who reshaped the cultural landscape, a bridge between black and white musical traditions, a pioneer who brought rock and roll from Memphis to the world, and a performer whose charisma transcended generations. His influence echoes in every swaggering guitar riff, in the fusion of gospel and blues in modern soul music, and in the very notion of what a pop icon can be. Yet the price of his crown cannot be overlooked. The behind-the-scenes turmoil, his dependency on prescription drugs, the pressure cooker atmosphere of relentless touring. The creative stifling under Colonel Parker's management paints a portrait of an artist suffocated by his own myth. We see a man whose artistic curiosity was hemmed in by formulaic films and Vegas residencies, who turned to amphetamines to ignite his mornings and sedatives to extinguish his nights. In assessing Elvis, it's impossible to separate the triumphs from the tragedies, because they are two sides of the same coin. As a channel, we honor Elvis for opening doors that were once bolted shut. He dared to blend styles, to cross cultural boundaries, and to stand unapologetically in his own skin. His voice, tender yet commanding, still moves us, whether in the aching melancholy of "Are You Lonesome Tonight?" or the urgent urgency of Jailhouse Rock. We acknowledge that without Elvis, the path for countless artists, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, Beyonce, might have looked very different. But we also believe in telling the whole story. It's crucial to recognize how the very institutions that propelled him to superstardom also contributed to his unraveling. The music industry's relentless commercialization turned his artistry into product. The cult of celebrity left him vulnerable and exposed, and the adulation that fueled his rise became the weight that crushed his spirit. We see Elvis not just as an untouchable legend, but as a cautionary example of how fame can distort identity and damage well-being. Now, we turn to you, our audience. What is Elvis's story stirring you? Do you find inspiration in his boundary-breaking artistry, or sorrow in the shadows that trailed his final years? How do you reconcile the enduring power of his music with the darker truths of his life? Has your perception of the king changed after peeling back the veneer of stardom? Share your thoughts in the comments. Whether you're a lifelong fan, moved by his early recordings, or a newcomer intrigued by his complex humanity, your impressions enrich the conversation. Elvis Presley's tale is far more than the sum of chart-topping hits and scandalous headlines. It's a mirror reflecting our own fascination with fame, creativity, and the price we pay for both. We can celebrate his triumphs, critique the forces that exploited him, and learn from the delicate balance between ambition and self-preservation. Some stories were never meant to be known. But now, long after the final note faded at Graceland, Elvis Presley's echo lingers in empty theaters and dusty vinyl crates. In the hush of a darkened room, you can almost hear the tremble in his voice as he sang of heartache, or see the flicker of emotion in his eyes when the stage lights hit just right. The king's legacy feels like a secret whispered through generations, a promise of something both glorious and fragile. As the years pass, we return again and again to his recordings, searching for that spark of raw urgency in Suspicious Minds, or the aching vulnerability in Love Me Tender. Each lyric carries the weight of a man who gave everything he had, then gave some more. We trace his steps from the tin-can churches of Mississippi to the neon glow of Vegas marquees, marveling at how a single voice could reshape the very sound of youth. Yet with every rewind, there comes the knowledge that behind the music lay quiet desperation, a yearning for freedom that never fully found an answer. Elvis's story reminds us that greatness often carries its own shadow. The medals of honor we pin on icons can sometimes hide the cracks beneath. His jumpsuits sparkle like constellations, but the stars they outline reveal a sky darkened by loneliness and longing. And yet, perhaps it is this very duality, this blend of light and darkness that makes his legend endure. We feel his triumphs in our breathless excitement, and his tragedies in the knot that tightens in our chests when we imagine him alone in the night. In the gentle creak of an old stage floor, in the whispered rumors passed down by fans who once lined up for tickets, we sense the king's restless spirit still roaming. He lives in the tremor of a guitar string and the swell of a choir backing an aching ballad. And even as time dims memory, his influence shines on in the artists who dare to break the mold, in the melodies that blur boundaries of genre and race, and in the courage it takes to bear one's soul under spotlights. That midnight confession, once locked away in Graceland's hidden chambers, now resonates like a final benediction. We carry it with USA, reminder that behind every public triumph lies a deeply private truth. Elvis Presley conquered the world, yet the world could not conquer Elvis. His imperfections became the brushstrokes that painted a portrait more powerful than any flawless fantasy. And perhaps that is the greatest gift he left us, the knowledge that brilliance and vulnerability are inseparable, and that to no one is to embrace the other. So when you press play on that old record today, listen not only for the king's command, but for the quiet plea beneath the plea for understanding, for compassion, for connection. Because even in the silence after the last chord rings out, his story remains alive. Some stories were never meant to be known. But now,